What would the world of music be like without Canadians? This weekend, Studio Bell presents Echoes Across the Border, Laurel Canyon and the Northern Connection, a look at a golden era of music when Neil Young and Joni Mitchell joined forces with musicians in California in the late 60s and 1970s. Joining me is Robert Santelli. He is the executive director of the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you as well.
So take us back to that era in the late 1960s and early 70s in Laurel Canyon near Los Angeles. Why was it such an incredible incubator for music?
You know, Laurel Canyon was so important for a couple of reasons. Number one was because the West Coast was really happening back in the late 60s. Of course, you had the San Francisco sound, which was very much a part of what the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and other bands were doing. But in Laurel Canyon, we had a sound that was equally important and equally exciting. And it was buttressed by the fact that Canadians, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, others, made their contributions there. So it was really an international contribution. It was an international scene if you look at both countries. And the sound that they were coming up with was incredible simply because it was a combination of psychedelia, country music, folk music, bluegrass music, and of course all kinds of rock. Very exciting time, very exciting sound.
Speaking of Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, both of them from the Canadian prairies, did they bring anything especially Canadian to that scene?
I think, you know, wherever you come from, you always bring a part of yourself and the place where you come from to the music. They did that. I think there was a great sense, as you heard on that little clip that you played of Neil Young. He had a kind of a country or rural kind of feel that was brought to Laurel Canyon. It was right around the time when a number of artists were, quote, going back to the garden, which were going back to rural and areas non-urban and drawing roots from those particular places. And both Joni Mitchell and Neil Young did just that, as did other Americans, but they were really at the forefront, both of them.
You know, a lot of us, when we listen to music, we don't even think about where that artist comes from. I wonder, as an American journalist, are you ever surprised to find out, hey, that guy's Canadian?
You know, sometimes, but I do my homework and I find out where they're from, but it doesn't matter. I mean, music knows no borders, especially when it comes to the United States and Canada. There's a easy back and forth, a creative back and forth, a geographical back and forth. So it's really minimized. But nonetheless, I think Canadians should be proud of the contributions they made to rock and roll and to pop music in general. And even though Laurel Canyon was in America, the Canadian, if you will, stamp is well placed in that scene and remains so to this day.
Bob, you have quite a resume working in various music museums. You helped start the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You worked at the Experience Music Project in Seattle as well. Now you're working with this Bruce Springsteen Center. I wonder what's needed to create a great music museum?
Well, all you have to do is ask Andrew Mosca, who's the CEO of your National Music Center, because what you have up there, been there numerous times, is a perfect example of what a great music museum should be. And I mean that sincerely. You know, I've known Andrew Mosca, and I knew with that project right from its very inception. I followed it along as it went along. And what you've done there is include multimedia, interactive displays, a sense of history, but also a sense of today. It has to be about today as much as yesterday, and that's what the National Music Center does. So it's a great example of what a great music museum is meant to be and what a great museum should be in terms of mission. There are others, too, here in the States. I hope one of them will be the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. That's certainly our goal. But I've been involved with a number of them, as you said, and the goal has always been to preserve and celebrate great American music, great international music, great Canadian music, whatever the case might be.
I remember being at Experience Music Project in Seattle and picking up a guitar and getting the tutorial to play Nirvana. There was a real interactive element to it. Interactivity has to be part of it nowadays, too, I imagine.
No question. And I was very, very fortunate to work with the late, great Paul Allen, who, of course, was the genius behind Experience Music Project. He was the one who said that a music museum should be an active experience. It's one thing to have some great artist's boots or stage clothes on the wall, but it's another one to dig into the creative process and understand how great music was made. I never forgot that. When I went down to the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles, I kept that way in the forefront of my mind. And it has to be. Young people today are less impressed with artifacts from back in the day. They want to interact with the music, and deservedly so. So a great music museum must have interactivity. Otherwise, it becomes stale pretty quickly.
You've had a long association with Bruce Springsteen. Obviously, he trusts you to be running his museum. Can you tell us about the very first time you met him?
The very first time I met him was all the way back when I was a boy, basically, in 1968. I was a big fan of an artist out of New York named Tim Buckley. Younger listeners might know Jeff Buckley, who was the son of Tim Buckley. Anyway, it was an acquired taste. And one day I walked into a coffee house in Red Bank, New Jersey, here on the Jersey Shore. And there was this long-haired guy hunched over his guitar playing Tim Buckley. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe anyone else knew about him. And I went up to him and I introduced myself. I was in a band at the time as well. We said hi and kind of moved on, but it wasn't really until he released his first album in 1973 that I began more of a professional relationship as a music journalist. And we've been friends, and I've been fortunate enough to interview him over the years. I helped him write his very first book, Songs. And now, of course, he's entrusted me with his legacy, which is the biggest task and the most nervous task that I have in my career. I mean, it's a big one to shoot. Bruce Springsteen is a pretty powerful man in New Jersey.
Absolutely. Back in the day, you mentioned meeting him. He's playing kind of folk music, really, when you think about it. Did you ever imagine his iconic status as a rock star?
Oh, yeah. The first time I saw him in a band, he was in a band called Steel Mill. A week prior to seeing Steel Mill, I had seen Led Zeppelin for the very first time on their very first tour of America. And I saw Steel Mill, and I said, my goodness, they're better than Led Zeppelin. And they were.
Wow.
So knew right then and there that there was something magical about this guy. There wasn't anyone else on the Jersey Shore who had ever reached that kind of status and respect. And of course, he's lived up to it. He's never forgotten his folk roots or blues roots. Just listening to, for instance, Nebraska, of which there's a great movie about that masterpiece of an album that's coming out in a couple of weeks here in the States. So he's a musicologist, even though he wouldn't call himself that. His knowledge and passion for music, all kinds, is pretty evident.
I'm certainly looking forward to that movie coming out fairly soon. I'm wondering, did you have any involvement with it?
No. Well, I didn't personally, but the Bruce Springsteen Archives did. We opened our archives for research for the director of the film and its content team to come in and look at things, look at photographs, etc. So we kind of played an indirect role. A lot of it was filmed not far from where I'm sitting right now here on the Jersey Shore. So we're looking forward to seeing it, and it's going to be something to see this story, which for those of you who are Springsteen fans who came after the Rising or Born in USA even, this is a story that is going to be pretty amazing for you to see. It's a powerful film, very intense and really, really good.
Okay, I'm going to call on your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame expertise here. Okay. Is there anyone who isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that you think should be there?
Sure. There's a bunch, but I'll give you one simply because I was with him this weekend. There was a group out of Boston in the early mid-'70s into the late '70s called the J. Geils Band, a great blues rock band led by the great Peter Wolf, who, as I said, I just interviewed in a symposium up in Boston this past weekend. The J. Geils Band needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
All right. Great opinion there. Bob, thanks very much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
All right, and Robert Santelli is part of Echoes Across the Border, Laurel Canyon, and the Northern Connection, a seminar Saturday at Studio Bell.